Hi, everyone. It's me, Kristie Clayton. Welcome to ConvHERsations with Kristie. If you don't know me, I am the founder of HERverse. HER is an acronym that stands for Helping Executives Rise, and we do that in 3 ways. We have a peer community for second in command leaders called Female Executive Mastermind. We have a peer community for leadership team members, and that's the Lead Her community. And then we have executive coaching for visionaries, integrators, second in commands, and leadership team members, and we do that through Accelerate. To say I am excited is an understatement. Today's guest is super special to me. I'm so excited to jump into conversation. But before I do want to remind you that HERverse is doing something special for those that were impacted by the hurricane, Milton and Helene. If you would like to get your Strong Her Together shirt, where all proceeds go to benefit those that have been impacted, there's a link in the comments. We're so grateful for your support in that. And with that, I'd love to welcome our guest, Shannon Johnston. Shannon, welcome. I'd love to have you introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kristie, thank you so much for having me on today. I am Shannon Johnston, and I wear multiple hats. And right now, about 6 months ago, somewhere in that time frame, I decided to leave my full-time integrator role. So then I have been teetering on this visionary integrator spectrum, which has been really interesting as well. And that's with the launch of Creating Sisterhood, which I know we're going to be speaking about today, as well as doing fractional integrator work. So there's so much about being an integrator I absolutely love. I'm now rolling out into this visionary world. So lots to talk about.
It's a crazy little world here, friend.
Crazy world.
Share with us, what is Creating Sisterhood?
Yeah, so Creating Sisterhood is, we're on a mission to end the mean girl stuff that starts when girls are really, really young. And the way this came to be is that for our daughter, Avery, it started when she was 8 years old. Avery came into this world when she was born, this fiery little baby, and, that kind of continued on. She was extremely confident, extremely bubbly, extremely kind, very social. And then starting when she was about 8 years old, I noticed that the female relationship started to change. Mm-hmm. And developmentally, I learned there's a reason for that. But after one particularly painful incident, I took anonymously to social media on a Facebook moms group that, I know a lot of caregivers go to Facebook to post about their experiences. So I posted anonymously just because of the sensitivities around what we were experiencing. Sure. And within 1 hour, I had 89 responses of women sharing their stories from when they were girls or stories of things that their girls have gone through. And it was just kind of this girls will be girls mentality. Like it was like, yeah, girls are mean to each other. And this really felt extremely wrong to me because I was experiencing the polar opposite of that in life. Through HERverse, right? Being a huge part of that for me, being part of FEM, I was experiencing firsthand the beauty and the power of women raising other women. And the freedom that comes with being truly authentic and truly vulnerable and supported and lifted through that. And having women encouraging each other to be themselves, to rise. So when I was hearing that this mean girl stuff was just what happens, I was like, we got to do something about that. At the time, because this is going back now, my daughter's now 11. So this is 3 years ago. At the time, I actually, without knowing it, was beginning to productize what this could look like. Because with our own daughter, we had to create tools and resources and conversations with her that didn't exist. Like it's out there for girls. It didn't already exist. So at the time, I just started creating exercises for Avery. I just started creating conversation prompts with Avery. I just started creating these things for our daughter. And it actually came pretty naturally to me. I think when you're in your passion, when you're in your flow, that happens. There was no kind of grindiness to it. I said I kind of tapped into this way of knowing. It was a combination of knowing, but then also my own life experiences kind of pouring into it. And so that's, fast forward 3 years. At the time, I was doing these exercises, these activities with Avery, and I was just seeing the results because I was seeing her bounce back. I was seeing her embrace not only her own gifts and strengths, but actually encouraging others to do the same. I was seeing her starting to create and hold boundaries as a child, like things that most of us did not learn as children. And so, fast forward a few years when I realized that this was something that I was hugely passionate about, seeing how Avery had transformed through this process. That's when we realized, okay, let's start to offer this to the world. So that's Creating Sisterhood. That's the vision. That's where it came from. What we offer now, what's now available, is self-paced online programs, one for girls between the ages of 8 to 11, one for girls between the ages of 12 to 15, and one for the parents. Programs, the caregivers, we call them. The programs look different depending on what they are, but they are full of videos, they're full of exercises, they're full of activities and meditations and breathwork, some self-care practices, grounding, centering practices as well. And so they're bundled up, that this thing that I was searching for 3 years ago that didn't exist now exists in the world. And as caregivers, we can arm our children, we can arm ourselves in order to navigate those tough social situations to build stronger, compassionate, kind women who will eventually lead the world.
I love this. One of the things that you said is there's a reason that it happens around that 8-year. Can you share more about that? What is the reason?
Yes. So when we were diving into it, we collaborated with 2 professionals on our programs. So one is a master therapeutic counselor and is a children's yoga and mindfulness practitioner. So that's when I learned that developmentally, when we hit around the age of 8, sometimes a little earlier, sometimes a little later, but it's when we start to identify as ourselves and others. So up until that point, children are really only consumed with themselves. They are. It's just developmentally, that's where they are. It's their perspective, their needs, their everything. They hit a point developmentally where they start being aware of themselves and others in a new way. And so when that happens, that's what drives comparison. That's what drives competition. And that's what drives insecurities, is they all of a sudden start to go, I'm not like that. They're starting to get triggered in some ways by that. And that's what developmentally for girls ends up coming out in mean girls. And for the mean girl behaviors we usually start to see are things like exclusion. I'm threatened by you, you can't play with us. I don't like something, you can't play with us. This is my crowd. And that's where the forming of camps starts to come into play. Or of course, name calling. As girls mature, it starts to become, more of the gossip, more of the rumors. Unfortunately, in some cases, the hurt goes so far that it drives into emotional or physical violence. And so we want to put an end to that. And that's why our programs start at that point of 8, because it's a bit of a reprogramming right from that ground floor, that we don't need to go down the path of, okay, we start to identify ourselves and others, therefore it's a foregone conclusion that girls are going to be mean to each other. It's like, no, we just need to give them the tools and resources so that when they start to get those trigger points, they actually have some tools in their toolbox that they can start using right off the bat.
I love that, right? I have a couple of nieces right in that age range as well. And there is a dynamic shift that happens here. And Shannon, for me, what I've observed is it lasts throughout adulthood.
It's true.
Yeah.
And quite often it's because we weren't taught these things as children. We don't know how to navigate it. And so then it just becomes a perpetual cycle. If we don't know how to, and I'd love to talk a little bit about the content that's in our programs, like how the modules shake out, and they were designed in a very specific way to guide the girls through a journey. When this was transpiring with Avery, the first thing that I knew is that I needed to get her to ground into herself. And so we created activities, reflective activities for the girls where they can really start to understand and embrace their unique gifts, their unique qualities, really with the belief that there's goodness within all of us. There really is. Like, I believe that we're all born really good. You know, those sweet little babies don't emerge into the world like, you know, I'm going to go world domination. And then like, you know, those are all kind of come from a place of hurt. So really grounding in. So the first module for the girls is called You Amazing You. And it really goes through self-care, self-compassion, self-reflection exercises. We create tools that are meant that the girls do the activities. This is what we did with Avery. She did the activities and then she went to school with them the next day in her backpack. And whenever she started to feel those insecurities and things like that come up, she could refer to these things that she knew were true about herself. And so there's exercises, templates, things like that we've created on that front. Once they move through the You Amazing You section, we go through feelings in sisterhood. And this is really teaching girls early about emotional intelligence from a younger age, that all emotions are okay. You know, I think I thought that sadness and anger were bad emotions. I grew up my whole life thinking that. And so when we actually start to understand that they're not bad emotions, they're information. And it's what we choose. We need to process them so that we move that through that energy. And so we really teach the girls that healthy ways to move through their emotions versus unhealthy ways. Because when we see the mean girl behavior, it's usually unhealthy ways of moving through emotions. So once we kind of establish that and we've got exercises and tools for the girls to work through there, then we move on from mean girls to sisterhood. And so this is where we start really teaching the girls. We take the lessons they've learned about themselves, start applying them to other people so we can start to develop empathy at the same time of understanding what creating and holding boundaries look like in a healthy way. And understanding what forgiveness looks like and why forgiveness is so important, because for girls, a lot of the time we hold on to our grudges, and we need to actually learn forgiveness and letting go. And you can forgive and also hold boundaries if there's repeat violations of the boundaries, right? So those things can exist hand in hand, while also holding the other person in empathy as they go through their growth journey. And then finally, Creating Sisterhood is the final module, where that's how we can proactively go out into the world and create sisterhood and actually go out there and build each other up. So it's really been interesting as Avery has moved through that process. And she goes back to, like, one of the things is it's self-paced, it's repeatable. Once you buy the program, you have it for life. It's truly meant to be a toolbox that sometimes she'll go back and pull out a particular exercise and go through and do it again because that's come up. But she spends most of her time in that Creating Sisterhood zone. What can she do to build other girls up, celebrate other girls, embrace other girls, and just to see her community group flourish in that way has been pretty spectacular.
Oh, that's incredible. Like,
yeah,
that's really incredible to see.
Yeah.
When at such a young age being able to do that.
It is. We were actually exhibiting at a expo about a month ago, and I got a call from Avery. We were actually out of town for it. It was in another province. And as I step aside to be able to take this call from her, and she was talking to me about how she was holding boundaries with a friend who she loves the friend, she respects the friend, but the friend was on this repetitive cycle of speaking poorly about other people, and Avery just didn't want to be, she didn't want to support that. She didn't want to be involved with that. So her friend was kind of questioning about why Avery was putting that distance between her and that. And so Avery was explaining that. And just to, again, hear an 11-year-old talking about and teaching her friend, like, oh no, I love you. I still love you, but this is a behavior that's not okay with me. And I'm just establishing a boundary. It's just, to me, just mind boggling that the work that we're doing, an 11-year-old has been able to be able to articulate that so beautifully. Yeah.
That's incredible. Like that's really incredible. And I know the young girls and things are really, really important to you, but the caregivers, as you refer to them, is just as important. Can you share a little bit about that side?
Absolutely. So again, it kind of comes full circle to a lot of us weren't taught these things as children. Like, they didn't exist. They weren't, I'm 41 years old, so I'm kind of right with our demographic of caregivers that we help at this point. And these weren't concepts that were taught to me in the education system. They weren't, necessary by my parents, who are wonderful, fantastic parents. I cannot fault my parents. They weren't taught these things either. These were definitely not things that in their upbringing in the 50s and 60s were live in their households. So a lot of caregivers don't necessarily have the tools full of love for their children. Absolutely. And so they're stuck. They don't know what to do. And sometimes that leads us to pretty reactive parenting modes, because we kind of go into, we're getting triggered on several parts and we can kind of go into reaction mode. One of the tools that we work through with parents is understanding, with the caregivers, is understanding our three selves when our child is going through something. And so this is, again, an exercise, a tool that's available for the caregivers, but it's understanding that when our child comes to us in a place of hurt, three of us come up. One is our own inner child. So we're going to get triggered by our own experiences of similar experiences. And there's going to be a little part in us that feels like the thing is happening to us. Like whatever our child is sharing with us, it's going to trigger that memory. And so we're going to go into hurt child mode. The second one that comes up is Mama Bear, Papa Bear. This is just like, through that, just genetically, we're going to be, my young is hurt. And I hear a lot of parents tell me this as their kind of go-to. And so what happens when we're operating strictly out of that protective Mama Bear, Papa Bear, is we're like, nobody hurts my young. And so we get super reactive. And sometimes that's thinking that we're coaching our child. Again, this is all coming from a place of love, but we're, advising them to retaliate sometimes. How many times do I hear, you're going to hurt my child, I'm going to hurt you? Or I tell my child, if somebody hits you, you hit them back 10 times harder. It's that perpetual, like that's where that's coming from, right? Like we want to protect. But that has a lot of adverse effects, for our child long-term. The perpetuality continues at that. And I think that mode is often what drives a lot of conflict we even see in the world. And so, we have to understand that part of ourselves and honor it. But also the third part that comes out is the rational adult. And so this is where the rational adult, like there's lessons. I refer to it in the exercises as there's wisdom to be drawn from all three sides of those, and there's shadow sides. And so we have to acknowledge them, pull out what we can take from them. We can acknowledge what our initial reaction is based on what we're experiencing those through. And then once we've done that, we can create an actual action plan for how we want to best coach and mentor and guide our children, and potentially, approach another parent. We've got tools and resources for how to do that as well. That's the side of it. But it's so important that the parents, the caregivers, do this work, because if the child is just doing the work, but the role model, mentor, caregiver isn't doing the work, there's just naturally going to be the children's work will still have an impact, but not as significant of an impact as you're going to want to have if the parent is doing their own work at the same time, the caregiver.
Could not agree more. That's so incredibly true. One of the things that I'm just thinking of as we're talking and, thinking about who's listening to, this conversation is, parents definitely, or caregivers, as you refer to them, getting involved and being, participating in the program, but also knowing and understanding the long-term results that this can carry into from a child into adulthood. It can affect just their friendships. It can affect their work. It can really truly have an impact on them long-term, and how important it is for them to really kind of help guide their child through this at an early age.
Yeah, huge. Obviously whoever's listening there's going to be a lot of caregivers out there. I mean, in the ConvHERs community, there's likely, whether it's a parent, an aunt, a grandparent, just, anybody special that has that special caregiver in a child's life. But I think, in the caregivers exercises, and a number of them, we get them to go into their real time. And it's not even always about the parenting. I know in one of our exercises where we differentiate between our behaviors and who we are, this is often where shame comes from, because we act in a way that's not in alignment with who we truly are at our core, and it's shame producing, right? And then we feel bad, like I am bad. It's the difference between I did something out of alignment with who I am versus who I truly am versus that. So, in the caregivers program, that's the kind of things that we want caregivers to learn as well as the children. There's a child's version of that exercise, but there's one for the caregivers as well. Because it also helps them identify, like with their own child, as who their child truly is, the essence, the core, the beautiful qualities that make us unique versus behaviors, and then understanding to bridge those behaviors. For, women just being in workplaces and things like that, we pull up workplace conflict quite a lot because, owning those times, and I have them myself, where I haven't necessarily treated somebody the way that who I am at my core, like I haven't done that, and really kind of working through those, doing the work in reconciling those two things so that we don't live in a shame spiral bubble, and then that we can also move through them. So I think there's lots of exercises in there. I mean, honestly, even if you're not a caregiver, there's just really good work. But I mean, primarily as it relates to how you are as a caregiver, we have to do the work ourselves so that we can role model that for our child.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It is such a critical place and time to be for kids, but also for caregivers. I mean, taking care of our mental health and our physical being, our well-being it's all important, and all of this plays into the long-term effect. So
it's true.
And I know I personally have told you many times, the I think the work you're doing is fantastic. I truly do believe it's going to make an impact on the world, and future generations.
Yeah.
We're going to see a huge difference. So I just want to again commend you for what you're doing.
Thank you. We operate our business off of EOS. Like, beautiful thing about being the integrator turned visionary is that you're, have the vision of what we want to create. And again, this only kind of came into fruition really March to we decided we were going to do this in March. So it hasn't been that long for us to go and create a full-fledged product. We've got an online shop as well that has merchandise that strengthens the message, because we want the messages to be wherever the girls are, so that there's the repetition and the reminders about what sisterhood is. So we did all of that within a very short period of time. But on our VTO, the 10-year target is we want 1 million girls embracing sisterhood. And if we can accomplish that BHAG, like, I honestly think it does have the capability of impacting the world, this future generation. I mean, just from parents becoming, like, stepping more into their caregivers stepping more into their power. And then the children growing up, supporting each other, lifting each other up. Who knows who these girls can become in the future and what problems they can help solve as they're lifting each other up. How big will her verse be when this generation of girls move into second in command positions and are doing it from a place I just think that it'll truly change the world. And I think the world needs a lot of that energy to help solve some of our big problems.
Agree. And what I keep thinking is the ripple effect it's going to be as well, right? So the girls that are going through it and the firsthand impact that they're going to receive directly, but also the impact and the ripple that's going to happen with those that they impact as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think I see that even just with my own daughter, like behaviors that we didn't go down certain paths, from her hurt place. I could see it going one of two directions. Avery was hurt. She could go down the mean girl path, which was going to be full of retaliation and name calling and, go down that path. Or we can go down, there's a fork in the road in those moments. So which route do you want to go? How do you want to arm your girl? And for Avery, she went down this path, and I am seeing the ripple effect in her communities, in what she's putting out into the world, in her embracing all of those things about herself and the impacts she wants to have, She came and worked with us at one of the days at the most recent expo, and just the way she was connecting with, children walking with their parents, or even the parents themselves, was really, really spectacular. So definitely the ripple effect is huge.
Oh, I can't wait to see what even a year, 2 years, 3 years, more or less what 10 years is going to do. And Shannon, I just want to pause really briefly and say thank you, because you have mentioned Herverse and the impact that it has had on you. And that just touches my heart. This is a place of bringing people together and us lifting each other up, cheering each other on, inspiring each other, encouraging each other, all of those words. That was extremely intentional. So I just want to thank you for sharing that, because it's powerful when we do that as women. And listen, there is a fork in the road for women. We can tear each other down and climb on top of each other to get up the ladder, or we can support each other, and all boats rise with the tide. And friends, I am very much so focused on let's rise together.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to just touch on that, because it is so authentic and genuine and everything from me. I'm going to shout out somebody that within the Herverse community that I regularly speak about, and it's because so I found out about Herverse, and it was the Female Integrators Mastermind at the time, because I've been a loyal and loving member for the last 4 years. Yes. And I found out about FIM while listening to a podcast on the visionary and integrator relationship. And I have to tell this story, because I think it's full circle to what, Creating Sisterhood is all about. So I listened to this podcast, and it was with Tyler Dorff and Nicole Meneke at the time. And Nicole was such an engaging speaker. I think Nicole, whoever's had the pleasure, if you haven't heard the pleasure of hearing her speak, try to figure out where she's speaking next and get yourself a ticket. But she, she did this podcast, and I heard this podcast, and I was just so engaged to it. And she'd mentioned the Female Integrators Mastermind and what a huge impact it's had on her life. And so I just reached out to her and stalked her, reached out to her, asked her for some time. She very generously hopped on a call with me instantly. I was instantly welcomed. I was instantly heard. I started sharing with her, this woman, things that I was experiencing. She held the space for that. And she really, right off the bat, wanted me to succeed. And there was no ties to it. It was just this beautiful moment of women supporting other women. She welcomed me into the FIM community wholeheartedly, and I was just embraced from that moment on. It just, continued to grow and grow and grow. The most generous, kind, loving community, and a community. I remember going to my first summit, and I'm a bit extroverted. I'm a little bit comfortable, more comfortable than most going to those situations. But even me, first day of school, nerves kind of thing. But I was just welcomed open armed. The opening keynote was Renee Russo, who just opened the floor for vulnerability and just showing up as exactly as you are. And there is just so much beauty in that. And the growth and evolution and support and love that exists in this community is just, it is unmatched. I don't think it exists elsewhere.
Oh, thank you. Means everything to me. So thank you for sharing that. And you're right. And we're lucky, because when this is airing, we are at Summit, and Nicole is our closing keynote speaker.
My fangirl. I am going to arrive early. I'm getting a seat right in the front. I'm going to elbow people out of the way with my Nicole Meneke fan t-shirt. And be a groupie. Ask for an autograph afterwards.
Of course. She's absolutely incredible. Yeah. Shannon, thank you so much. I knew this would be a powerful conversation. And I want to make sure if there is a caregiver in the audience that's wow, I want to know about this program, where can they find you, friend?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, super easy. www.creatingsisterhood.com. All of the information is on there. We're primarily in the Facebook, Instagram world as well. So we've got creating.sisterhood is our Instagram handle, and Facebook is Creating Sisterhood ITW. So feel free to join, follow. If you go to the website at creatingsisterhood.com, there is an option to opt in for our newsletter, which we are starting to do weekly newsletters, and they're chock block full of tools and resources, blog posts, things that will really help navigate any aspect you're on in the journey.
Yeah. I know one part of your business that is really important to you is that this is affordable for people, right? This is not,
That's
some
right.
extremely expensive. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we very intentionally kept it affordable for most families, and would love to eventually get in the position where it's we have a format where it's affordable for everybody. I know I don't want cost, but for now we've launched the programs that if you buy a single program, so either child or caregiver, it's $199. Again, once you have that, you have it for life. Like those tools and resources are there for life. The videos, breathworks, meditation, they're all in there. What we really recommend though is our bundle. And that's when you do a junior or senior girls program plus the caregiver program. And that we've just naturally discounted at $299. So you're saving about $100 there. And you have, again, the caregivers program and the girls program that you can work through. There's also, if you want to buy all three, there's a $329. So that's only a $30 additional investment if you want junior, senior. So we really have done our best. And then also, if you follow along in our newsletter, we do regularly do promo codes and discount codes and things like that.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Shannon, I know you have no idea what I'm about to say, but one thing that I want to do is, how passionate about this I am too, right? And the self-care and self-love and believing in yourself, putting imposter syndrome aside. I want to be able to help a child and a parent. So we are going to be purchasing a bundle package and giving it away. So if you are watching this, if you will, comment or like or share, we are going to be doing a drawing and giving it away to someone very special. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. That is such a generous gesture. I'm honored, touched, and for some reason not at all surprised because you're Kristie Clayton and you and HERverse are going to help women any way that you possibly can.
Absolutely. Whether it's personal, professional, one of our goals at HERverse is to really help you with your whole human experience. Mm-hmm. And so whether it's your personal life or your professional life, we want to be there for you. And if this is a way we can be there for women who are caregivers, and also for young girls, let's start making an impact with our young girls. So we will definitely do that. So Shannon, I'm super excited that I were able to do that and that I could surprise you with doing it too.
Oh, you're always full of surprises.
Yes, I try to be. I love it. Well, friend, again, I knew this was going to be an incredible conversation. Thank you so much. I love to end our conversations with rapid fire questions here. So really briefly, honor for me really truly means thinking about a woman of a past generation that has made an impact on you. Who would you like to recognize and honor?
Yeah, I think that I would honor my mother. We had our own ups and downs, mother-daughter relationship, particularly in my teenage years. And one of the things that she recently shared with me is a lot of her own self-doubt that kind of crept into motherhood, what came from a mean girl situation that she experienced when she was around 9 or 10 years old. So I think that this what we've created here is really honoring her and almost giving that childhood her what she needed.
That's amazing. That's absolutely incredible. What about empowering a woman of today? So, when you think about women who are in business today, and of this generation, who is a woman that either empowers you or that you really want to empower?
I would really love, so many women empower me. That's really hard to pick one. At that point, I have to give a nod to the entire alliance for women that inspire me or empower me. And then on the women that I'd like to empower, it is really just any of those kind-hearted caregivers that are out there that are just really wanting to do the best for their girls and are really committed to ending this mean girl cycle that we just need to put an end to.
Agree. Oh, do we ever need to just put an end to it? Yeah. And what about a woman of a future generation? Who do you want to inspire, my friend?
Yeah, so that would definitely have to go out to my daughter, Avery. We were very quick when we started this business to say she's not the poster child for our business. We don't want to put her on that pedestal. She's a kid learning and growing and making mistakes and falling down as she is supposed to do. And so she's not the poster child, but she's definitely the inspiration behind this. And again, to see her just embrace it and go out into the world just kind, inclusive, and confident is just, yeah, that's obvious. So that's the obvious one for me.
Yes, I would have been surprised if you didn't say it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, friend. You are an inspiration to all of us. Thank you for what you're doing to change the world. And as you know, I love to say, let's change the world together. So I love that you're doing this piece of changing the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you know that Herverse and you have been a part of this evolution for me. And it's honestly without you guys, I don't know if I would be here. So it's really a full circle piece of gratitude.
Oh, well, thank you, friend. It's been beautiful and amazing to watch you grow and develop into this. So I'm so excited for you and what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, before I get super emotional, we will see you next week where we will be live again. Join us next week for Conversations with Kristie.